Hey, this is Brian. Welcome back to the Disturbing Illusion channel. And you know, there's a principle, kind of a precept laid down in the New Testament in Ephesians 5:11. And whether you're religious or not, it kind of rings true. If you think it doesn't, leave your thoughts in the comments about it. But it says something to the effect of, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. So there's two prescriptions. Don't have anything to do with them. Don't participate with them. Don't join with them. Stand on the outside and expose them. Reveal. Have transparency. Shine the spotlight on these people, because once people see who they are, hopefully they can detach. Hopefully they can put their cup of Kool-Aid down. They can tear up their ticket to the cult of personality, throw it away, and walk away, and then start owning themselves instead of going through the humiliation ritual, the mass humiliation ritual of the voting process. Do you ever wonder why it's so important for the powers that shouldn't be to get you out there to vote, to spend billions and billions of dollars every election cycle to get you out there to take that slip of paper and put it in that box or pull that lever or push that button? Why is it so important? Because it's important that you demoralize yourself, that you walk away from integrity and virtue, and that you throw your lot in with people who are evil, political, parasitic psychopaths. That's why Samuel Adams said, no people will tamely surrender their liberties, nor can any be easily subdued when knowledge is diffused and virtue is preserved. On the contrary, when people are universally ignorant and debauched or debased in their manners, they will sink under their own weight without the aid of foreign invaders. That's what the psychopaths intend to do to you through the humiliation ritual of the voting process, the demoralization ritual, the dehumanization ritual of the voting process. Walk away from virtue and morals and principles and cast your lot in with us. That's why it's so important on the Disturbing Illusion channel and some other really good channels out there that are doing similar things, to have no fellowship with these evil people calling you to do evil things and demoralize yourself, but rather stand outside and expose them. So in keeping with my promise to continue exposing the Brian Tyler Cohens and the Kyle Kalinskis of the world, we're going to go over this chick's, that she's apparently going viral because somebody stopped to do an interview at her at the No Kings But My Kings protest. And Kyle Kalinski's also promoting this left versus right paradigm lie. But I'll try to remember to go over this, because what she said is very important, because it kind of encapsulates what a lot of people are thinking. So let's get back to Brian Tyler Cohen and listen to what he says about how big of a deal he makes that the military parade for Trump was anemic, while the No Kings protests were powerful. Check this out.
It turns out that Saturday saw a staggering 2,169 No Kings protests, drawing approximately 4 to 6 million Americans. That is roughly 2% of the entire American population in what's now considered the largest one-day protest in U.S. history.
And in argumentation, this is the appeal to the majority. Hey, there were all these people out there protesting against Donald Trump. They must be right, right?
So, to summarize what happened here, Donald Trump wanted to host a massive military extravaganza a la Bastille Day in France or Kim Jong-un in North Korea. We don't do that in America because it's weird and fascistic. Donald Trump insisted on doing it anyway. That spurred counter-protests across the country. The counter-protests drew more people than ever before in American history, bringing...
Call it what it is. It's not really a counter-protest. It's actually it's along the lines of tipping the hat to statism. Oh, that's not the statism we want. That's not the flavor we want. We want a different flavor, but we do want statism nonetheless. It wasn't a No Kings protest. It was, hey, we want to inject into your minds our king that we want on the throne. They do want somebody on the throne. They just don't want the mango messiah.
2% of the total U.S. population into the streets, and meanwhile Trump's parade, which was the impetus for all of this, drew such a sparse crowd that the most viewed moment from the entire event was this.
This is how shallow and childish the Brian Tyler Cohens are of the world. And I'm going to show you how popular he is in a second.
That creak of the tires might actually haunt Donald Trump until the day he dies. Do you know how quiet a parade has to be to literally hear the tires turning? Like, I've been to funerals, really sad ones, that were somehow more jubilant than Donald Trump's birthday parade. And of course, the Trump team is well aware of how embarrassing all of this is, which is why Trump's communications director, Stephen Chung, came out to rewrite history on behalf of Dear Leader. He wrote, "The so-called No Kings protests have been a complete and utter failure with minuscule attendance. It is sad Democrats and liberals would rather support criminals and illegals instead of celebrating the 250th anniversary of our great U.S. Army and Flag Day. But many more Americans are commemorating our brave military men and women who have given the ultimate sacrifice and those who continue to serve our country."
See the false dichotomy here? Stephen Chung is putting out the same false dichotomy, the false two-choice system that we have. Same thing that Brian Tyler Cohen's doing. Same thing.
Now, first of all, a complete and utter failure with minuscule attendance? Yeah, so, Gavin Newsom tweeted a video that I think pretty adeptly debunks this little bit of wish casting by the Trump team. Second of all, even if the No Kings protest did have minuscule attendance, which of course it didn't.
I want you to look at some of these photos. It's not that there weren't a lot of people. There were a lot of people. Look at this. This right here is in San Francisco. Look at the streets, just littered with people, littered with signs calling for a king while they're pretending they don't want a king. Impeach Trump. This right here is in Iowa. This right here was in San Francisco, California. They even went to, they graded a beach off and then they cordoned it off to look like, no kings. This right here is in Chicago, Illinois. This also is in Chicago. That's a lot of people. And I'm not saying that a lot of people didn't attend this. They did. But what do you say about the majority of people? What does history say about the majority of people? The majority of people are usually wrong. They're screaming for the wrong thing. They're looking at the wrong thing. They're being distracted about the wrong thing. They're not going after the people who are really responsible for what's going on in our country. And Brian Tyler Cohen is one of those people standing up on his soapbox with a large audience. Let me show you how large his audience is. He's averaging about 5 million views a day just for this last month. He's on track for 150 million views for the last 30 days. He got 19 million views just yesterday. This guy gets more views in one day than I will get probably in the next 10 years. Matter of fact, he gets more views in 30 minutes than I'll get all year. That's how popular this guy is. And that's just on one of his platforms. I don't even know how many views he's getting on Facebook and Instagram and X. This is just from YouTube. This is how popular he is. This is how popular Kyle Kalinske isn't as near as popular as Brian Tyler Cohen or Midas Touch. But I mean to say there are a lot of people listening to and agreeing with this alternate statist message. And this is going to keep us in a constant feedback loop where 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30, 50, 100 years from now, they're going to be saying the exact same thing, voting for the lesser of two evils. We've got an existential threat and you've got to vote Republican. You got to vote Democrat. That's what we're in. And that's the cycle this channel, The Disturbing Illusion, is trying to break.
But humor me here, you pretty much surrender your ability to make that claim when these are the images coming out of your rally.
I don't know if there's a copyright on this music, but I'm just going to go ahead and mute this right now while the camera pans. But yeah, it was granted, it was an anemic response for 250th celebration of the U.S. Army and for a celebration of Trump's birthday. Absolutely anemic compared to what's going on around the country with the No Kings protest.
Now, I should note that 200,000 people were expected to attend in Washington, D.C. And look, in fairness, it wasn't a total loss. Hundreds of people still got to enjoy the show. But in general, it's probably not great that there were as many parade participants as there were spectators. Now, in fact, it was such a failure that Republicans in Congress are now having a tough time trying to justify all of this in the media.
You know, I'm all for the president appearing and doing enlistment ceremonies at military bases. I've been with the president at Dover to receive home our dead soldiers, and so those who have been killed in action and to mourn their loss. But I just never liked the idea of the parade, because I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and the only parades I can remember are Soviet parades for the most part, or North Korean parades. And the parades I remember from our history were different. You know, everybody remembers that famous scene of the soldier, you know, dipping the girl and kissing the girl in New York in a ticker tape parade. But we were rejoicing the end of war, and we were rejoicing our soldiers coming home. And that absolutely ought to be commemorated and discussed every year, Memorial Day, Veterans Day. But we never glorified weapons so much. And I know he means well. I don't think he means for any of this to be depicted in another fashion, but I'm just not a big fan. And then there is the
always giving Trump the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, this is a glorification. The Trump parade, the military industrial complex parade, was a glorification of the defense contractors and the powers that shouldn't be that own the military industrial complex, which is, you know, also owns AIPAC. It's a foreign country that owns our nation, which is Israel. We give crazy amounts of money to foreign nations, including $3.9 billion every single year, and then some to Israel. So this is just a glorification of the military industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us against decades and decades ago.
I mean, we're $2 trillion in the hole, and just an additional cost like this, I'm not for it.
Frankly, at least if it was well attended, then maybe you can make the case that it was worth it. But now you've got a parade that cost a staggering $50 million, that was decidedly un-American and weird, and that no one bothered to watch. And so it's no surprise.
See what he does? He sprinkles in little bacon bits of truth on this massive salad of lies.
No one is falling over themselves to try and defend this atrocity. It's also worth noting that the No Kings protests helped make Donald Trump's second term to this point the most protested in U.S. history, with over 15,000 protests since he took office in January. At this point in 2017, there were only about 5,000 protests against him thus far. And I should remind you that energy in 2017 led to Democrats taking the House in midterms by the biggest margin in modern American history, flipping 41 seats and switching the gavel to Democratic control. And now Americans are protesting at a rate 3 times as high as 2017, which of course doesn't bode well for Trump and Republicans in midterms. Meanwhile, the day after his failed parade, this is what Trump has to say.
A fantastic audience. It was supposed to rain. They gave it a 100% chance of rain, and it didn't rain at all. It was beautiful. And so I asked if they gave it 100% chance, right? 100% it was going to rain like crazy, and it didn't rain at all. How did they predict 100 years out and 50 years out or 200 years out? They didn't do too well, the weather people, last night, but it was beautiful.
In other words, the day after this guy basically lit $50 million on fire, his message is that the news is wrong and that climate...
That's actually a good way to put it. He lit $50 million on fire. Imagine what you could do for the homeless population with $50 million.
Change isn't real. It really is no wonder that people didn't want to go to his birthday parade. In fact, it didn't even really look like he wanted to be at his birthday parade.
He looks like he's asleep.
In 1914, years of escalating competition between European alliances culminate in the outbreak of the First World War. The two sides engage in a savage war of attrition.
It's pretty sad.
Lined by opposing trenches.
Pretty sad.
That might explain the squeaky wheel phenomenon. Even the birthday boy, who demanded that taxpayers give him a $50 million gift so that he can feel special, could barely keep his eyes open. Perhaps if he wanted some enthusiasm, he might have considered coming to the protest that I was at in downtown Los Angeles, since it seemed to have a little bit more, energy.
See, this may make people feel good, but it doesn't do anything positive for them. The elites like this, the powers that shouldn't be like this, they love it when you go out in the streets, and they love it when you go out there and protest, and you're upset about the current administration and you want to do something about it. You want to see a regime change. You don't want this regime, you want that regime. They love that because they are the team owners, and they own both teams. They own all the players, every single one of the candidates, and they love for the spectators to fill the stadiums to applaud for their team.
The only downside for Trump here is that the only events where people are actually enjoying themselves just so happen to be the same ones where people hate him. Trump did mention that he wanted to be a unifying president, and he's managed to do that. Only problem is that they're unified in opposition to him. So I'm sure that a very butthurt Donald Trump and his very butthurt administration will spend the next few days trying to rewrite history in deference to their God King, and that we'll see some Sean Spicer level gaslighting about the millions upon millions of people who came to watch Trump's historic military parade. But while these people might lie, your eyes don't. And in this case, neither do your ears.
All right, so that's Brian Tyler Cohen. Again, this is the leftist progressive propagandist who's telling you stay on the road to statism, but join my side on my side of the road in my ditch, go in the exact same direction as the people that I say I oppose. If you like these videos, you can support this channel for free just by liking this video, sharing this video with everybody you know. If you want to support further, the Cash App and the other links are in the description. It's never anticipated, but it's always appreciated. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for sharing these videos. Thanks for sticking it out with me. Let's walk according to principle, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them, and let's set brush fires of freedom in the minds of men. I'll see you in the next video.